Welcome back to the Awake and Aware podcast. Today wasn't a expected episode, but I have found myself in my space and I have felt the calling to pop on and press record. So I guess here we are. Today's guest, a bit of spontaneity. A very old friend of mine who him and I have recently reconnected, and we have felt the alignment in our lives to be called to, I guess, rediscover and explore our friendship. And it's been an incredible journey. I think for a lot of us, over the years, especially coming from high school, we do disconnect from our social life, even our friend groups. It's very rare that you come back into the picture with those people who you once, I guess, grew apart from, and where life really does, do its own thing, and it shows you a lot and it teaches you a lot. So Ethan, thank you for joining me today in the studio.
The pleasure is all mine. It's all mine. Well said. Just quickly there in regards to how we can grow apart from so many of those that we thought we'd be, tight with for a long time. When we were as close as we were back in high school, for the context of it, I always saw us being friends for a long time. But it's, for me, in retrospect, it's very, dare I use the word, entertaining, but also curious and intriguing to actually reflect on, at what point in which exactly it was that we started to drift, if you will, towards our own journeys for that period of time. But as I think I've said to you before as well, I wouldn't even describe it as though we grew apart, but rather grew into ourselves, and that underlying connection was always there. And the growth we went through was necessary to allow it to, reestablish itself. The roots were there, and it's a revisiting of things on the surface is how I like to see it. And more importantly, when we're both in a space where we can really capitalize on what we think, is important for ourselves, for the world, for those around us. And hey, two's better than one, baby. So
it is. And
it is.
Together we rise, right?
Together we rise.
I think I can definitely agree in the sense that I always knew that you and I would find our paths to reconnect. And what a beautiful scene it has, right? Mm-hmm. I think as we continue to grow and develop as individuals and as a society as well, I think for the most part, a lot of us can find it really difficult to connect with certain levels of people on the levels in which we desire. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because in a life of, especially in the self-development and the spiritual realm, especially in the emotional intelligence way, I think all of us, we sometimes search so deep for something what we know we have internally. And I think as a craving, as that byproduct, we desire to have the reflection of us, I guess, come into our lives. Yeah.
I would back that up, or, maybe better said, I would further elaborate on that by jumping in and saying that I think it's very common for even just us as human beings, let alone as individuals, let alone as teenagers, let alone as, beings that are susceptible to influence from so many external sources. It's very natural to look externally for a validation of what's within when you don't even recognize it's within in the first place, especially. Mm-hmm. It's a constant, pursuit of that which is already internal. And I think that pursuit has become external, largely due to the separation of self that we experience, in a societal sense worldwide, but also because of our current inability to truly connect with ourselves. And that, for me, perhaps is because I feel as though the definition to a lot of people of accepting yourself is to be accepted by those around you. And that couldn't be further from the truth or more inaccurate.
100%.
Even if you tried.
Yeah.
It couldn't be. It really couldn't. Yeah. We are, to continue the tangent on recognizing the importance of separating yourself from all that which is around you in order to uncover what's truly there. Obviously, I'm not saying that receiving positive influence and even negative influence isn't important and isn't unnatural, because it absolutely is, as natural as it is to pursue it. But it's also, I think, just recognizing that having a balance between the two is really important. You're more than welcome and, allowed in this life to be guided and influenced by things, especially the things that you want to be influenced by, and that's where discipline comes into the question and everything. But just recognizing when, it's turning over from, this is a positive influence, can have a big impact on my life in a way that is actually effortless for me because it feels aligned, and I'm going to break back here and push this to the end of the earth, in pursuit of just getting a hold of this, because that is where the emotion behind that is control. It's ownership. And anything that stems from that ultimately stems from insecurity. It stems from the idea that you have to possess something in order to actually have. You see it all too often in relationships nowadays, and I won't even go into that for all of our sakes. But yeah, that would be my 2 cents on that piece. It's it'll lead me to a question I want to ask you. What do you think is perhaps one of the things that you felt most influenced to pursue, or even a way in which to be? What's the most prominent one that you felt influenced from an external source that has affected you personally?
Negatively?
As an individual, or positively? The most, intense, if you will.
I think now my current poor position in life, I'm more so influenced to chase myself more so than ever.
Mm-hmm.
My passions, the pursuit of my hopes and dreams. I'm in a space where I'm so lucky, and I'm so lucky. I'm so grateful to have people around me who constantly want me to do better for me, whilst channeling that myself. I'm met with all these incredible people who would rather see me grow more than them. And I think that's just the selflessness of the people I surround myself with.
To give is to receive.
It's 100%.
On that note, yeah, absolutely.
And, the famous quote from Old Mate, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your future. It's like...
My mum I've heard that from her lips too many times. Show me your friends, I'll show you who you are.
100%.
It couldn't be more true. It really couldn't. I'm glad this has come up. We were talking a lot more earlier about the importance of, the company you keep.
Mm-hmm.
And the environments you put yourself in, the energy you surround yourself with, that I'm coming to realize the more I grow old, is probably the most critical part of it all, to be honest with you. You could be A1, sorted out, top to bottom, drilled in, as much as you want it to be in regards to anything. But if you're in a space that doesn't allow and make space for that growth to actually happen and that expansion to proceed, and you're restricted by the limitations and the literal physical boundaries that energy creates, which it does because everything is energetic, then you're doing yourself a massive disjustice and a massive disservice by remaining in that space. It should be your number one priority, no matter what sacrifice you have to make, to return to a space that allows you to grow, even if it isn't comfortable and doesn't have on-paper benefits. I'm just going to let that soak for a second, because honestly, and I say that largely from my own personal experience, but even, objectively, you view it in other people, and it's got to be picky about your sacrifices. Picky about your sacrifices, and recognise that the right thing is worth sacrificing. And I say that loosely, anything, bar your exceptions, obviously. Life, love, family, yada, yada, yada. The stuff you read on those signs up in your living room, they're the exceptions. But outside of that, it's,
I think going back to your question originally, there was definitely periods in my life where I was influenced in a negative way. So I
was there with you for a lot of them, bro. I was probably the negative influence at times, if I'm being fully honest.
And vice versa.
And that's
vice versa, man. I mean, how many times were you and I still awake at 6 a.m. drinking in the backyard of someone's shed? Right?
It's scolded into my memory that one morning. I'm feeling particularly questionable.
We've had plenty of questionable mornings. and I guess at the same time, I think I'm grateful to say that I have experienced both sides of the spectrum. Because at one point it was so negative and it was so dark and it was so horrible and just horrible to be in. But
scary.
It was scary.
It was scary,
it was scary. It was lonely. It's like, fuck, is tomorrow going to come?
Real cloudy. And this, for me, the scariest part was exactly what you just said. Is tomorrow going to come? Do I care if it does? Do I care if it does?
Yeah.
There's a few too many of them. And outside of feeling like myself, the hardest part, and I think this is why this is so vivid, especially having, reignited, if you will, this connection more recently. I, from that memory, have a vivid memory, I have a vivid particular image in my mind of, as much as you want to laugh, and it is humorous now, it was when it was like 6:30, 7 a.m, maybe a bit later, because somehow we managed to find a bottle that was open. Or we bought drinks off. Yeah, God forbid, it could have been Marketplace and for all we fucking know. No, literally. And I obviously, transparency here is what I'm bringing to the forefront.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm putting you in the limelight. Yeah, but in a way that, because it hurt me to see. Got a lot of love for you. Always have, always will. That has never changed, right? And in that instance, the specific one I'm talking about, it was witnessing you sculling a copious amount of alcohol. Not copious, but, a considerable amount for 7 a.m. after a night out. I'll say that, right? Yeah. And it was very noticed for me that it wasn't a concern for where that would lead you or how it would make you feel in 10 minutes time, half an hour time, let alone the rest of the day or the day after or next week's, and I could see that in your eyes. I could tell that there was a disconnect, but I, being the susceptible and insecure and traumatized young man that I was far too terrified to try and pull that up with you at the time and actually go, brother, like, I love you. I can tell you're hurting yourself and that hurts, because self-harm comes in lots of different forms. It doesn't need to be blood and blades. It really doesn't. And that's really hard to see. I feel like a lot of us go through those periods where we actually watch our mates harm themselves. And I say that as sharp as it comes off my tongue, as it sounds, because we do. And we don't bat an eye on it because we're actually busy harming ourselves as well.
Yeah.
If you choose not to sleep properly each night, if you choose to put a certain type of food in your mouth that knows is going to make you feel shit later, if you choose to consume those drinks and do those drugs, you are harming yourself. It's self-harm. It's self-harm. And I did it for way too long. It's not by choice, of course, and a lot of it is influenced by addiction, which is, as much its own thing as it is inclusive and, a large part of this topic, an essence of it. But we all know it comes down to decision. It comes down to decision in any given moment, and that's, for me, to try and tie this in a way that doesn't lead me off to 6 different avenues that I want to run down all at once. Maintaining presence in the decisions you make in front of you is what will lead to you making the decisions that will shape your future into who you want to be in the future, essentially. I could word that better, and I will when it comes back around to me. But yeah, it's hard to recognize how powerless you were back then to make a change that you knew needed to be made for your mates, because you couldn't make it yourself. And that still runs true. How easy is it to give someone else life advice and not take a hint of your own, not listen to
That rings true. Fuck, 3 minutes ago I was laughing here in the corner, and then I started tearing up. Bro, I think, how old were we? Yeah, 17. I think,
maybe even younger, maybe 16, to be honest. 17.
That was the very beginning of what then become a very dark,
that's what I mean,
lonely, horrific, moody, all of the words you can think of. That was the start of, something what's brought me to this point in my life today. And that was a long, I think, from 16, and
feels like forever ago.
It does. And for the most part, bro, I had no concern whatsoever what I was putting into my body, like what you witnessed that morning. And I'm 99.9% sure I know exactly the morning you're speaking about. And that was the time of my life where I just didn't want that was the start of, you know, me not even wanting to see tomorrow. I didn't care if tomorrow came.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I haven't done much reflection on that, but I probably will after today. But I think that was the start of something. And I think a lot of us, especially in that 16, 17-year-old phase, we do it by default and we don't recognize the consequences, what can come from mornings like that. When in the moment we're like, yeah, fucking sick, man, skull the big, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Well,
real. And I think a lot of us, the
repercussions are frighteningly real.
They're huge. And, you know, like you experienced and I experienced too. I think we're both in the boat. And but I think now...
I use that example primarily, to really bring the emotions forward. To be able to highlight more than what we were consuming, what we were doing or anything rather. Yeah, you know, how it felt from a mate to another one. To see them do that, as goes without saying, I don't doubt there was too many times that you would have looked over and seen me doing something questionable, whether it was in a kitchen, that shed, or anywhere else. It was like, you know, probably wouldn't choose that for myself, you know, when you see it from an objective perspective. And we all care about ourselves, obviously. We say we do. It's very easy to say. And we can be quick to judge, I feel, as well, when we see other people doing things that, you know, we might not agree with.
Do you think back then you were consciously using alcohol to mask aspects of your life? It wasn't just in the moment, oh, Lockie, let's go to this party, or rah. It was just like you were actively trying to mask something, what had happened?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And alcohol was one of a few vices. Absolutely, yeah. I especially in retrospect, I've gone through a few traumatic things in my merry old few years on this planet. I'm by no means old, but I'm wise and experienced in the way that I've experienced a number of things in no matter what amount of time it may be, that have had a huge impact on who I am and my understanding of life in itself. That's the best definition I can give for it. Age has never been something for me that, you know, is a necessity for wisdom, certainly not for experience. I've met 19, 20, 18-year-olds that have got bars on 25, 26, 27-year-olds and vice versa in other contexts. You know, it's irrelevant in that sense, and I can tell I'm procrastinating the question here. I did, massively. I was unfortunately traumatized by a few things that are nitty-gritty, and I only just got to the surface through that 20 Talk challenge that I did. So they're still a bit too raw, I think, to put into this microphone without seizing up, if I'm being honest with you, without being too, you know, not exaggerated at all. Actually, I take that back. But I was traumatized by those things heavily, and at that age, you don't realize how much you are utilizing substances, alcohol, and even just hanging with your mates and kind of being mindless, to be honest with you, how much you choose to do that to not face whatever else is going on inside. It's all a blanket and a Band-Aid. Because like I said, when you put it side by side with the simple truth that we all want to take care of ourselves, we all want to be healthy, we all want to feel good, and yet we constantly choose to do these things that cause us not to feel that, especially at that age. I was prime old 17. If I slept well and woke up the next morning, you know, having not drank, I could have run around the moon. If I put myself through however many beverages and woke up the next morning on that hangover, I was resisting my potential. I knew I was. I wasn't being, I wasn't being as good as I could be. I wasn't feeling as good as I could feel. That's the simple truth of it. And when you put them side by side, you go, okay, I can feel amazing, I can feel great, I can run around the moon, or I can wake up tomorrow feeling like trash, having spent way too much money. Why do I still choose why do I choose the spiky road? Why do I choose to put myself in positions of harm? And I think it's because we're so much more, let me get my words right here. We are so much more content with a familiar hell than we are with a new heaven.
Yeah.
we all will run straight back to the thing that looks familiar to us, and our mind recognizes, even if it causes us a monstrosity of pain, before we open up to a door to the contents of which on the other side we do not know. Change terrifies us more than anything on this entire planet. That's where I think it all comes from, this idea that, if I'm to change, maybe I will feel better, maybe I will be good. But the sheer fact of not knowing and not being able to get that guarantee and having to put the work in anyway to find out, I don't think there's a deterrence much bigger for anything on this planet than that.
What do you think was the pivotal point of where you decided to stop running back to that same hell to really allow yourself to lean into experiencing the new heaven?
Really good question. For me, I was backed well and truly right into a corner. And by that I mean, I was going to say one way out, but there was two ways out. One of those ways was to continue on the path that I was on. That wasn't a way out. That was a way in, to a grave, dare I say. To be literal with you, I either, continue what I was doing and then ended up in a place, this is a better way to put it. What I recognized, it was to stay doing what I was doing, started to become so cloudy and dark that whatever was on the other side of that was just as unknown as whatever was on the other side of pursuing greatness. They became equal to each other. The lack of vision I had for each route I could choose to take became equally as blurred. So I was left with nothing but emotion. And I was sat in that corner, a metaphorical one, but also quite a literal one, in the sense of really being sat in my room, trying to understand this up here. And I'll have to use the camera for reference there because I pointed my head, my mind, and the relationship it has with this puppy right here, my heart. That's a tricky one. Always has been, always will be. I was in that corner, and the only place I could go was back inside myself. That was the only direction I could head. I'd tried everything in regards to going front, left, right, straight, up or down. I'd pushed, tugged, shoved, consumed anything that you could do to try and stimulate some form of dopamine release or anything else in the way of trying to improve my mental state was done. And I didn't feel like I had nowhere to go. I had absolutely nowhere to go. I was back against the wall. And I was on my knees. I'd, in every sense of the word, given up. It took my sister she said something about the toast I was cooking, and I broke down and burst into tears and just fell apart because I tried so hard for so long to maintain this sense of independence and prove to myself that I was, I didn't need support. I didn't need help. I didn't want this to affect anything around me. I concealed it all and just locked it up to the point that I say that to provide context on just how fragile I was. It took a comment that wasn't even about my emotional state. I think I got mad because the toast burnt and I had a little fit or something. And my sister's, you sweet? As casual as you could be. And I just fell apart. I absolutely crumbled. And it was after that, just like that, that 1% weight lifted from that little cry, as a good cry does. I just let that light, slip in through that crack for a moment. And I had a look at it. I remember it. I can visualize it almost. Like that light shone in through, When a space is so dark, it doesn't take much to recognize a little bit of light that's creeping in, right? And I saw those rays swinging on in, and I remember sitting with them, and I thought, okay, well, I know what that is. That's trying. That's looking at all of this and going, you're there, yeah, right, but I've got a life I want to live. I've got things I want to experience, ways I want to feel. I've got years ahead of me that have yet to be experienced, but I've also got every present moment that is unfolding constantly as I breathe and speak, and they are all equally as beautiful as the next. And I do not want to give up any more of them to being suffocated by that, which has only come to exist because I've chosen to give my energy things that have caused me to be where I am. That's a very confronting thing to say, because even the traumas I've gone through, and I think this will apply to everyone if we get down to the depth of it, we all at some point made a decision that led us to be in that position, that led us to end up in that situation.
Yeah.
Obviously not saying it's we're to blame for that. At the time we knew no better and we were following what felt natural. But for me, for example, the situation that led me to the most traumatic experience of my life, which is the biggest effect on shaping me into who I am, was a product of pursuing mindlessness. It was a product of pursuing drinks, time wasted, and the desire to be disconnected from myself, that I didn't have to feel what I was feeling. Pushing that so far pushed me to an edge, and it pushed me off into the hardest thing I've ever been through. It doesn't take much more than pushing yourself off an edge to realize that you got to start climbing the fuck back up. You got to start climbing the fuck back up.
I think a lot of us go through it all too much. We let the darkness keep creeping in, and we let the darkness continually get more dark until it just takes one thing to push us over the edge. And I know for me, my experiences in that, it's been fucking pretty raw. It took me a lot to change. It took me a lot to really come to the realization of the life I was living and the things I was doing and the amount of pain I was creating more within my own self, but also the pain I was running away from. My vices were everything you could fucking think of. I could sit here and tell stories about some of the most fucked up things. You know, it's like something you see on a fucking documentary.
Literally. It's terrifying how much pain we can create by trying to run away from the pain we already have.
100%. It's like a problem resisted is a problem extended. And I think for me, I was ever so resisting everything in my life. I was resisting love, touch, the need to be heard. I was resisting everything. I didn't allow anyone in. I didn't even allow myself in. I would look in the mirror and be like, who the fuck are you? I had no idea. There was a point in my time where it was literally ego death and I was sober. Right. I have spent many mornings looking at myself in the mirror being, who are you? What are you doing? And it's just a byproduct of the lifestyle I was living. And going back to who you hang around with, it was also a byproduct of the people I was hanging around with. Yeah. It's like everything in your life has a ripple effect and no one notices it until it's too late. It took me, not sure if I'll get into that, but it took me 4 very, 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 very heavy situations that I was in to make me realize that I had to make a change. And
that goes to show it often is a lot more than just one.
100%.
Before you actually want to do something about it. Yeah.
And I think I can sit here and be soppy and be sad and tell some horrible stories that'll make you cry, or but I think at the end of the day I was trying to kill myself, but killing a part of myself. I didn't think I actually wanted to die. I just wanted to kill that part of myself. And by that, I continued to use heavier stuff. I was hoping that was going to kill me. Because I didn't want to kill myself. And I think it took a lot of, like I said, four pretty heavy situations that I was in to be like, all right, you got to make a change.
You realise that wasn't working, eh?
No. Oh, man.
You can't fight fire with fire, as mum would say.
I was putting, man, I was fucking,
good luck.
man, I was chucking bombs on the fire, hoping that I was going to put it out.
Yeah.
Literally. And I think, for the most part, and for the young people of today, I sit back and I witness it all the time. I see it. Even driving driving to go for my run this morning, I was driving through Surface, and what it was about, countless people, 18, I guess the school is 18, 19, and you can just clearly tell they were off their trompers. And it's like, I feel bad for you.
You do.
Like, I
you
do.
can understand. That's the worst part. That's the worst part. The fact that you can at all relate sucks. But then, from an objective perspective, you feel bad for them because they're too naive to know any better, as we all were and are, if you will. I'm not preaching from a pedestal by any means. Still got my vices, and I still, battle them day to day. What you said earlier sparked me a little. I don't want to just
elaborate, please.
Chance.
Yeah.
Just about the ego death you had. It reminds me of an experience I had as well. Do you know Eckhart Tolle? If you don't, The Power of Now.
Yes, I do.
You would know the book.
I know The Power of Now.
He's the author.
I have read.
You would have. If you haven't, read it.
Yeah, right.
Incredible. I say that having read the first third of it. And the only reason, this is what I'm going to jump on, if you have read the first third of it, quick rundown, he explains his spiritual awakening when, he could describe it as an ego death, spiritual awakening, a break into the other side, or better worded by him, and I would also like to back. And perhaps if he didn't say this, I'll say it now. Not a break into the other side, but rather a return to the original center. He hit a point, and a very similar thing actually happened to me. I was taken aback reading it. It was almost as though I was reading a monologue, or if that's the right word, of my own life, of events that had played out. And the way in which I could relate to how he explained it was surreal. And it moved me so much that after reading that first section of the book, it wasn't so much that I didn't want to read the rest, but rather I didn't feel as though I needed to. It had resonated with me a lot at that stage. And I'm intuitive, so that was like, all right, I'll put this down for now. And I haven't returned. But I was at my breaking point. I had this little farmer's market job. Straight after I had a really bad shoulder injury. I was in a sling. I started smoking way too much weed. I lost all my muscle mass.
I remember that.
Yeah, nightmare. To get nitty gritty with it, all my scapular muscles had lost complete control because they were so weak. Combine that with a separated shoulder. Stitch up. It's just not ideal all round, right? Cooked myself. This is what I mean. That was progressive. That was like each day, it doesn't matter if I sit here and vegetate. COVID as well, mind you. So I was just, get high, play Xbox. Yeah, fun, cool. That's great. Day for day for day for day. Sometimes, maybe I should slow this down. It doesn't matter. Day for day for day. It felt like it was overnight. I was sat there, excruciating pain, and this chronic pain had developed because I smoked too much, I hadn't worked out, etc., etc., etc. Lost literally, compared to what I had, all motor skills, right? And I was packing fruit boxes and I couldn't even do that without being in too much pain, both physically, which then turned into mental pain, and my mental fortitude then was next to nothing. It was so fragile. So this chronic pain would come on physically to hit my mental, fall apart. I had nothing in me, right, as far as resilience went. And that was easily my most fragile state. And that night, it was after I decided to quit that job because I was like, I'm doing it to try and prove something to myself, but I was running up a glass slope and someone had lathered it in soapy hot water. I wasn't getting up it, right? So I surrendered. I just let go. I was like, all right, if I'm going to lie here in this bed and not even be able to sleep because of this shit that I'm feeling right now, if I'm going to cut off these jobs, separate myself from all these friendships, connections, not even talk to my family because of how much pain I'm in, and I don't want to ask someone to help me with it, then what else am I going to do? I'm just going to give up. I'm going to give up, and I meant that from my core. I just let go. Rosalind Bonnever, if you know the song, listen to it after. You'll know the feels, and it does the best job I can possibly try and articulate in any sense. To help someone understand just maybe what I was feeling then. And I had a dream that night that I still remember so vividly, moment for moment, movement for movement, all the rest of it. I was by a fishing lake. I was with this village. I was in a crowd. I lived a day
in a life, in either an alternate reality or the one here or something rather. And when it came to the end of that day, that evening, I had progressively grown weaker and weaker as the day went by. I started strong and fit, and I was weaker. And I was in this little shack with my brothers, my close friends. I think a couple of my closest friends were there, the ones that I had at the time. But my brothers, so vividly, were by my side. You know, that was the energy that was there. And in this dream, half nightmare, when I started to become so weak by the end of this day, the sun was setting and this dark energy was overtaking the entirety of the planet. It was shrouding everything up, and I was the last, you know. It was like out of the movies where that, you know, darkness diseases the land and you watch the green turn to black and everything's dying and it's all rippling in. Some full Fortnite fucking Battle Royale type storm shit, yeah. And I'm in the middle, and I remember tucking myself into a ball, and I was in this little house and shack with my family around me. And this evil energy was pushing, and it wanted me. It wanted every part of me. It wanted to own it all. It wanted to take me for good. And there was this split moment when it had smashed through the windows, the doors had broken down, my siblings were at knife point. It was, you know, hell had broken loose. And it was on top of me as much as a sleep paralysis demon is when you're frozen solid at 3 a.m. And I get the goosebumps now just talking about it. And I had a split decision, a split moment where I either kept fighting, I kept feeding it, I kept giving it the attention it wanted, or I surrendered in the sense of going, you can try your fucking best, there's not a chance. There's not a chance you're getting the best of me here. I've got too much to live for. Look at my family next to me, was what I kind of thought. And it was a split moment decision of either give in and I'm done, or snap back. Something snapped back. Light. That planet turned green again very quickly. I woke up and nothing had changed. All the problems were still the exact same, but the weight of them and the size of them in comparison to the newfound appreciation I had just discovered, developed, and depth of experience I had just attached myself to and become aligned with in regards to living a life and being alive and being present, it was incomparable. They were minute and microscopic. It wasn't that they'd disappeared. My entire perspective had just been altered, and I was able to look at them from a point of I was previously a product of them, and when I removed myself from them and I realized in a deeper sense that I'm not my experiences, none of us are our experiences, they're just things we experience. That's why they call it an experience. They do not define us in any sense, and our thoughts do not define us either. I'll say that while I have the chance here. Thoughts do not define us either. Recognizing that made me realize that I wasn't an individual linked to any one thing that had happened to me or any one journey I was on. I was a collaboration of everything that could happen, everything that will happen, everything that has happened, all of it. There's so much freedom and beauty in that when you recognize you're not attached to any one thing, but you're rather entirely free to pursue any which direction you like at any given moment, and be able to do the same with what you've already gone through as well. You truly do have the power to draw a line in the sand wherever you feel fit. You get to do that whenever you want. It's not easy to draw that line sometimes, but whether you're an artist or not, whether you're creative or not, sometimes that line is the most important thing you'll ever do and the most beautiful piece of work you'll ever work on. So, draw the line in the fucking sand.
It's like our traumas aren't our responsibility, they're just a reflection of what we've been through. Mm-hmm. But it's your responsibility to learn and grow from them.
Our power lies entirely how we react to something and how we act in the face of it. Our power lies in what and how we react to what happens to us, not what happens to us. Our power lies in the way we react to what happens to us, not in what happens to us.
I think a lot of people forget that. I think a lot of people let their experiences dictate the continuation of their journey, rather to try and navigate into a different path if they wanted to see the end of the light. See the end of the light of the tunnel. That's moving stuff. And I was going to say something here, but I've completely forgotten. But no. Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for listening. A pleasure. Yeah, I've been wanting to share that with more people. I haven't even shared that with you personally prior to this. I haven't shared that with almost anyone, to be honest with you, outside of immediate family, or those that saw the change in me and saw the improvement, saw the growth, and saw the health.
I get that.
I woke up the next morning and I had a smile on my face, which was second to none at that time of my life. Like, you know, if mum wasn't met with me being complainative or argumentative in some form in the morning, something was wrong. I was a little shit show, right? I was smiling. I was sat there on the balcony with a chamomile tea, looking out over, and I would have looked crazy, delusional. I was laughing hysterically. Just out at the world. And it was laughing back at me. It was this vibration that I felt. And every bird that went by and chirped, every car that honked down on the road, every waft of breeze that swung around the corner and caught a couple of my curls and sunk them into my mouth as I tried to take a fucking sip. It was all talking to me and laughing with me in a way of just like, did you really take this all so seriously? Like, are you kidding? And I sat there and I was like, as if I did, man.
That's beautiful.
Life is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Now, you and I can sit here for hours and continue to just talk, and I think you'll definitely coming back into this space, and we will have a smackdown episode. But I guess today, thank you for joining. Thank you for being here in my space.
Thank you.
I had no idea we were going to be doing this, and fucking how good.
How good.
Now, I guess it'll be exciting to have you back in proper. We'll sit here and have a good yarn. I definitely have a lot to say in a lot of regard. I just wanted to let you tell your story and wanted to let you navigate your own conversation, because I think what you have to share is truly beautiful, and you mean nothing but incredible things to this world, to this life. I know to me you are. I appreciate you a lot. We have some great things coming up.
Very exciting.
Which I'm very exciting.
I can't wait to be, I'd get even more involved. But a pleasure, man. Thank you for opening up your space to me. Thank you for listening. And thank you for being such a motivating factor in my current pursuit of wanting to be a better person. Really.
Oh, thank you, bro.
No, I mean that, man, honestly.
That's fucking the most, that's incredible to hear. That is the most, that's fucking, thank you, bro. I appreciate that.
Really. Yeah, it's inspiring, and it's having a space in which you feel as though you can entirely be authentic to feed into what we started this kind of with. Invaluable, man, it's invaluable.
It is, brother.
I look forward to being any more.
100%. I'll make sure to have all of your links in the show notes. But for everyone listening, wow, thank you for coming onto this spontaneous joyride.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely, brother. It's the best way to do it. The best way to do it. But I thank you guys for joining us today. It's been absolutely incredible. We have got to run, but I look forward to having Ethan back on in my space and having a bit of a deeper chat and sort of expand on what we think needs to happen in this world, and even just navigate our own thoughts with each other, and just to have you third world in, just listen, and hopefully you guys can take something from even this conversation and what will be coming up in the near future. It will be nothing short of incredible, just like Ethan is. He embodies a lot of traits that I think this world needs more of. And things are happening, things are moving, things are exciting, and just wanted to relay that back to all of you guys listening. you're all fucking amazing. You're all incredible. You all embody things that this world needs more of, and don't ever shy away from that.
Yes,
The moment
sir.
you wake up every single morning is the moment that other people smile because you're here. That's just the way it is. And the support I receive from each and every one of you is second to none. It's been incredible, and I'm constantly reminded just about how much this is really lighting myself up and also lighting you guys up. I think I show up here every single day and try and make a difference in this world and truly have an impact, because I feel like the world needs it. The world needs more positivity and needs more reinforcement of the values that you embody, and that you are fucking incredible.
Put simply.
So
Yeah.
for me today, from me to you, I love you guys so much. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.
It's lovely to provide a bit of context on all of it and myself. I look forward to it. It's been a pleasure. Lots of love. I can't say anything better than like you did, everyone.
Ciao.
Love those around you
Big
and love
love.
yourselves, alright?
Big love. Ciao.
Again, counted all the gold in our new home.